So for this video, we're going to be deck testing a Control Crusader build, obviously centered around Unstoppable Rage, and we're also going to be trying to abuse our friend the Morag Tong. It's just really fun, and it feels really good to get zero cost to giant spells. So Morag Tong Nightblade is the centerpiece, and then we obviously run Unstoppable Rage, Dawn's Wrath, the Red Year, Cast into Time, Piercing Javelin, Fell the Mighty, and so on and so on and so on. So we will see how this goes. I've played it a little bit in the past, and I had some pretty decent results with it, but that was when things were unstable shortly after the expansion released. I'm curious to see how this performs now. We are going first against Battle Mage. This looks like an acceptable opener. We got some early game, some guards. Riftbane is basically a 2-cost, 2/4 guard in this deck. We never play this aggressively. I guess I shouldn't say never. If we get a really sweet opportunity to utilize the breakthrough because we're magically ahead against a full opponent's lane of Night Mother targets or something, then yeah, we would do that in a heartbeat with Unstoppable Rage. But I would say 99 times out of 100, this just ends up being a 2/4 in our favor. So I'm gonna go ahead and just play the Night Mother, and we're not gonna make targets yet because we don't want to ruin our ability to trade, but we do want to get some stuff going in our favor here. Skaven's a great top deck for us, and we will actually make a target here as well. So we're still going to take some damage from that, but unless they throw a mace on this, Skaven has the potential to trade. We have Hive Defender the following turn. We're saving the Hunger because the combo from hand is Hunger plus Rage, but we do also have to, survive that long. So let's go and do that, and play a Defender. This card is rather underrated, specifically in Prophecy Battle Mage decks. Would not shock me if he tries to mace this here to protect it. He wants to trigger his own runes.
Close ranks, let nothing through.
Or he could just want to get through my Hive Defender. So we will see what happens. Either way, we're gonna clear. There is no reason we're not just gonna cast into time that, because I don't want to deal with that ever again. And take the value there. Now, had he done it the other way, we could have used Execute on the 2/2, but that's also a card I don't want to see any more of ever, so that will just get cast into time. We'll give ourselves a free target. So we're up to 5. We're a quarter of the way there.
It has been written.
Get another Rage.
They will not get past
We're going to go ahead and, just in case they've got removal, we'll double up there.
They will not get past me.
Argument could be made for holding on to it, but
There's nowhere they can hide. The hunter becomes the hunted.
'tis fair. So we're gonna do this for sure. Now we do have the Javelin. Javelin on this is tempting just to continue to keep the pressure down. Also, Execute here is kind of tempting, because we're just trying to buy time until we can gain a ton of health with that combo. I think, just given the way our hand is set up, that the right play is to Javelin this and then pass. Because if this hits us for 1, then we get to draw another card anyway, and we don't want to remove absolutely everything because we're 2 turns removed from gaining a ton of health. But we don't want to take too much damage. The greed play would be to just pass, which is also really tempting. But I'm going to go with my gut. My gut says get rid of that. Because if they have like double mace or mace lightning bolt, then the amount of health that we were sitting at suddenly is not very comforting. A second hunger to go with our second rage is entirely great, as long as we live long enough to trigger that. We got a ways to go before
The forest will not suffer
that's a
your
problem.
presence.
Does remove our guard here, so that's a little bit sad. It's also kind of sad that Fell doesn't hit anything right now. We are just going to do this, just because damage saved is damage saved, and then pass and hope that they don't have 12 damage in their hand with their 10 magicka. Right now they are falling into our trap though. Alright, so there's the mace. The mace is what we were worried about, and the reason you're worried is because we gain less health.
Do not travel this one.
Now, the good news is this still gains us enough health that we're not in any danger of dying. And because this has drain, he probably has to trade here. We're up to 13. Now you could just ignore us, but then we'll turn around and gain a bunch of health again anyway. It's gonna ignore us. It's gonna go all in.
The hunter becomes
I got
hunted.
a sneaking suspicion that when we do this again here, and let's be honest, we're going to do it again, that our opponent might just concede. They might not, but with one card, we're still at 19 health. We have drain on the board, and we, thankfully because of this, we don't even need to break runes to give it to him. So like that's the coup d'etat, if you will, is we can just go like this, kind of casually nuke things.
They will never know.
Play that, and give this drain as well, so now we have drain in both sides. Would not shock me if we get a concession here. But even if we don't, again, we can play things entirely safe by just winning with Night Mother next turn, but they do concede, so yeah. That is a win against Prophecy Battle Mage. So we will see if we can replicate our success. I mean, it makes it look really easy when you get a favorable matchup. I think Prophecy Battle Mage is very favorable to us. We'll see if we run into any of the really strong, value-oriented mid-range decks or not, which I think is the weakness of our deck, but it just feels good to Unstoppable Rage and gain a bunch of health. Or had we drawn the Nightblade sooner, we could have potentially tried more shenanigans with that. Alright, so now we're up against Warrior. So as I was just saying, we'll see if we get paired up against some of the more value-oriented mid-range decks. Well, we don't want any of these in the opening hand. These are all either stabilizing late game or like combo pieces. Got a little bit better, but not a lot. So this one, if our opponent gets off to a great start, this might not go very well for us.
By Arcade's beard, this day will be mine.
Top deck execute, go. That's not an execute. And what's worse is our 3-drop doesn't kill creatures with ward, so.
Confound you!
And most of the 3-drops are bad for us. Crushing Blow does not kill Mammoth, does not kill Withered Hand Cultist. He just gets a value trade here, but the speed bump I think is worth it.
They will not get past me.
Crushing Blow does not kill Haunting Spirit realistically in that scenario. I mean, it does, but then they just end up with a 5/5 warded creature. Though at least that we have answers for.
I'm ready for anything.
This is very much
Power and
an
glory.
unfavorable matchup. We need some prophecy help. Right on cue.
We'll see how they like someone who fights back.
Right on cue. Lots of different ways that we could handle this. I legitimately feel like Hive Defender is the better play, because if they don't have some sort of either like removal or Earthbone Spinner, it clogs up the lane really well for us. I know that we have Fell the Mighty here, I know that we have Crushing Blow, but I think just taking the trade and then playing a Hive Defender, that requires them to at least have something. Morkel Gatekeeper gets the job done pretty well for them as well.
The longer the odds, the sweeter the victory. Close ranks, let nothing through.
Man, I am prophetic. And not in a good way this game. So, how do we want to handle this? So we have lots of hard removal. So we're going to certainly use one, but we have to decide which one we want to use and what ones we want to save for combos later. Cast into Time is a no-go because this has to be saved for Sower of Revenge. Fell the Mighty we can use now, which is nice, but we also want to save this potentially for like Trolls. Similarly, Piercing Javelin, great against Troll. Crushing Blow would be nice to save and pair with this on 7, but Crushing Blow just here again pulls the biggest damage, biggest threat off the board, and saves our hard removal for juicier targets, hopefully. But we are in a bit of hurt.
Too late for
They're a turn away from potentially playing Jarl, which would be a really big problem for us.
Do not fear me, mortal.
There's the Sower.
Should.
Right on cue, which we thankfully have an answer for, but we're still taking damage. We don't have a Rage to pair with our Hunger, and that's still like 4 more turns away, so we may end up having to use the Hunger early just as a high priority speed bump for them as well. Like we could potentially drop our Douchenick Archer and the Hunger behind the guard. In fact, that might be exactly what we do now that we have a second one, which means we have 1 to spare. We also might, depending on what they play here, if it's a big threat, might just be Javelin and then Hunger.
the Night Mother.
Yeah, that does in fact appear to be the play. So we cannot let Garnag stick, and that's just going to eat a Gatekeeper, but slowing them down is our #1 priority, and there is no way they can, with us at 7 potentially going into Rage, there is no way that they don't do that there, so. Woodork might just seal it for our opponent, however. It's not looking great for us. I mean, we do have a Vigilant Giant that can clog up at least 1 lane. It'd be nice to cast into time that, because we can't afford to take more. But if we cast into time, we also can't deal with this effectively. So it's looking like our play is going to be Fell the Mighty. And
We must protect our stronghold.
this, and then pray. Pray that they don't have additional reach. Of basically any kind.
Too late for you.
There's nowhere
And they
can
do.
hide.
So, bad matchup. We kind of walked into it. We knew that it was coming. We did just find a Dawn's Wrath, which would help us stabilize, but without an ability to gain health, that's a problem. And as I said, just overall, mid-range warrior is going to be a problem for this deck. Garnag's a problem. Witherhand Cultist is a problem. That's not one I would expect to win there, I don't think. So we got to see the good of the deck. We got to see the bad. I don't think this is going to be a tier 1 deck, but I do think it's a lot of fun. When you get those big rages, or especially if you can do brutal things with the Morag Tong Nightblade, it's just a lot of fun. So I would recommend playing it just for that fact alone. Hopefully you had fun. I did. Thanks for watching. Until next time, may you walk on warm sands.